The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
BWB, this is One Nation Radio. You better get it right. Rich Latta, James Boyd came to give them life. The Blackest Wrestling Podcast has come to kick all ass and drop it 6 feet if they kicking trash. Word, let me welcome y'all to something different. And if you dig it, man, you should let some friends listen. We be getting it in, this on the regular, dude. Ravish and flow, but this shit rude. See, James don't rap, so I had to break it down. The whole network, man, we coming for the crown. Raps in the columns, I keep them both covered. Making the beats too, so the listeners can bump it. Hit us with the rating, yeah, I'm saying it's a 5. Before you hit it, talk, bob your head side to side. It's One Nation Radio, and this is the beginning. It's Rich, and I'm here with James. It's time to listen to One Nation.
We got to unleash the power of the pyramid.
This is Mike Sempervive from WrestlingObserver.com. Check me out on Wrestling Observer Live every day. And also check out your boys, Rich and James, on One Nation Radio.
This is Kenny Omega. We're listening to One Nation Radio. Check it out, guys. These guys know what's up. Big Kenny Omega fans, and that's all that counts to me. Goodbye and good night. Bang.
Welcome to the April 29th edition of One Nation Live, one time for all the real ones. I am your host, Rich, and we've got a lot to discuss. Last Friday, of course, was the greatest Royal Rumble. It was not the greatest Royal Rumble in name, only in title. A lot to go over, but first, appreciate everybody supporting the Social Suplex Podcast Network over this month. This has been our best month ever. We've shattered our previous records for what we've done in a month by at least double that margin. So first off, thank you guys for listening. Make sure you guys rate us on your platform of choice. We are an independent podcast network, and our budget simply comes from word of mouth. And the only way we're going to reach more people is with your help by sharing the show and rating it and making the algorithms go ham and, you know, making the Twitter stuff be shared and all that. So make sure you guys check out all the other shows on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Brand new Ring of Honor and Impact show, The Wrestling Wash, hosted by Caleb Baldwin. The Outsider's Edge, hosted by Rance and Carl. The Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show, hosted by Ricky and Clive. And Keeping It Strong Style, hosted by Jeremy and Josh. So if you want, your New Japan stuff. But we've got a lot to talk about here today. First, shout out to Troy Hollywood, who sat out here with me last week and did an interview. If you guys haven't heard that, it is in the archives. Please go check that out. That guy is going to be coming up in the world of professional wrestling in the near future, and you always be able to say, hey, I heard him when he was 3 years in on One Nation Radio. So, but we've got a lot to talk about today. The Saudi Arabia show, all the thoughts behind it. We're going to be talking about Batista on a story I read about him coming back to WWE and it being nixed. And of course, we're taking your questions and comments live on the air here. If you are hearing this later and you want to be part of the live broadcast, make sure you add yourself to the Wrestling Squared Circle on Facebook. We go live usually on Sundays with these, and we just have a good time and all that jazz. So, beginning today. So, WWE and Saudi Arabia. It's a very complex issue. Obviously, everyone's kind of got their own thoughts on it. First off, my opinion on this isn't better than anyone else's. Nothing I say should change how you view on it, unless you really take what I say to heart. And some of you guys maybe do that. So I appreciate you if you do. But it was so complex, man. It was really weird watching that show. I watched it on my phone at work. All 5 hours, I might add. So I don't know how I was able to pull that off, but a lot of it felt like, heavy-handed propaganda. And that kind of felt weird watching. And, we in life, we all have to make trades with certain things. For example, like, with WWE itself, I've, been a wrestling fan for 20 years, watching WWE essentially since 1995, 1996, somewhere around there. And I have to make the trade that this, company is linked in with the Trump administration. And if you guys have listened to One Nation Radio for any amount of time, you know where I stand on that, so I won't go all crazy there. But we all have trades to make, and I feel like this show is a perfect example of why I applaud anyone getting some of Vince McMahon's money, because there's a phrase, and it goes, all money ain't good money, and this did not feel like good money. WWE was kind of used, I won't even say kind of used, it was, shown like this was a paid commercial for Saudi Arabia and saying, look how, we're doing and look what we're doing now. And they are essentially in the 1940s, maybe even earlier than that. We know Sami Zayn was not able to participate in the show. Meanwhile, he had been able to wrestle in Saudi Arabia a couple years ago. So that is kind of one thing that is kind of confusing to me. Why was he able to wrestle a couple years ago and not now? Obviously, the women were not there. Not Stephanie McMahon, not Ronda Rousey, not anyone. So it's it flies in the face of the whole women's revolution. But like I said, there are trades that, people have to make in life. And this was the trade that they made for that amount of money. We don't know what it is. I do not believe that it was $200 million for this single show. Now, could it be $200 million for the entire 10-year contract? Sure, it could. I'm expecting somewhere around $20 million for this show. So we'll find out in August and see if all this was really worth it, to go through it. And it was crazy how we had all the stuff with the Fabulous Moolah. And this was like almost such a complex issue, it kind of stumped a lot of people. So we had people jumping out the window talking about bringing up New Japan and the fact they don't have any women. To me, that was just the most straw man argument that you could make, because it's not necessarily like related at all. The fact that New Japan doesn't have women performers, that's just a personal choice that they made. These guys here in WWE went out there to a country that was like, no, your women cannot come. So to me, that's a big difference. That's not, really something that equate at all. And, it's not like people that are saying this stuff about New Japan actually really watch New Japan anyway, for the most part. And that means they definitely don't watch like promotions like Stardom or anything like that. So I don't know, man. It's really weird, like, as far as how you feel about that. Me, I didn't like it. I didn't think that it made WWE look good at all. And this was just something that they had to do for the check. You gotta, make your money the way you can. I don't think there's a business or a wrestling company that would have turned it down. And like I said, in August, I think we'll all see the effect on it. What's going on, Ricky? So yeah, man. Like I said, my opinion on it isn't better than anyone else's, and it, keep getting Vince McMahon's money as much as you can. Like, if you're a wrestler, if you can find a way to make money off WWE, do it. What else we got going on today, man? Let's talk about the card, man. So, like, as far as the show goes, the actual show, yes, Dylan, we are in here. This is a weird show. WrestleMania 34 was not my favorite show at all. Made it clear on podcasts. Pretty much shitted on it. Hated it. We had a quick non-wrestling related question. Cavs or Pacers? He says he's got to go with Braun. I feel like the Cavs are going to win just because I don't see LeBron losing in round one to the Pacers, but I'm rooting like hell for the Pacers, so go Pacers. I could use some foolishness for the first round, and also to see all the excuses everybody make for this man. So but back to the wrestling. We've got, the Greatest Royal Rumble. I thought it was a decent show. Like, I didn't hate it. Like I did WrestleMania 34. Now, I don't know if that was because of lowered expectations, because I thought we possibly could have saw the greatest WrestleMania of all time. This was not the Greatest Royal Rumble. Like I said, it was only in name only. And shouts out to my man Dan, who is from Indianapolis, and he's rooting for the Pacers. I've been talking to him all week. He seems to have a pretty level head on the situation, so it'll be interesting to see if when I see him tomorrow, we can high five or not. But it was a 5-hour show. To me, it didn't really feel like a 5-hour show. It was paced well. The matches didn't go super long or anything, but it was like that as I mentioned before, there was just a weird feeling in the air watching it. And I don't know if the crowd knew everything that was going on, and that kind of hurt in some cases. Other cases, it kind of didn't. So I don't know. I thought it was a cool thing to do. Like, and for me, I looked at it like a possible test for holding a big show on the other side of the world, like at some point. So I feel like that was a test for whether it was the United Kingdom, whether it was for them possibly going to Japan again, whether it was a possible Big Four type show, like whether it's Wembley Stadium or even somewhere in Ireland or, you know, maybe even Africa. Who knows? Like, you know, they're pretty popular out there, like South Africa and everything like that. So maybe WWE had more, you know, in mind for this show than we thought. But let's go through matches, man. We had John Cena and Triple H. I thought they had a decent match. Gave that one a rating of 3.5. To me, it was kind of like a greatest hits of their stuff. We know what John Cena does. We know what Triple H does. I don't think either guy, you know, they're obviously not in their primes anymore. And they didn't really have a reason to go out there and just kill the entire show and, you know, just shut it down. They were in the opener. It was a nice match. Something to watch if you ever want to check it out. I was really impressed by Cedric Alexander and Kalisto. I didn't rate it that way, but I thought they were a perfect, this was a perfect spot for those guys coming in right after Cena and Triple H. Crowd was already hot. All they had to do was fly around and impress, and I think they did. I thought Kalisto really earned a lot in this match because Kalisto's obviously gotten a lot of shit online from people because he's not necessarily the most, like, while he wrestles in exciting style at times, you just see the name Kalisto and it just feels like such a drain sometimes. But I think in the match with Buddy Murphy that he had last week, he showed that he's a very talented in-ring, you know, performer, and as well, you know, in this match with Cedric, he was step for step, move for move with him, and I think people forget that this guy was, you know, a guy in NXT that was having good matches and that was doing stuff like this on the regular. Seeing him and Cedric go out there and getting that chance to be on the main card, that was really special for 205 Live. So shouts out to those guys. The Raw Tag Team Championships were taken home by Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy. Now these guys, I don't know, bro. It's real weird. It's Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy. Bray Wyatt's finally a face. I was yelling and begging for him to be a face back after WrestleMania 32. I believe I wrote a column last November about there has never been anyone in WWE that needed to turn face more than Bray Wyatt. And he's finally face, but it doesn't feel like it's something that's necessarily hot. It just feels like it's a mismatched tag team. I hope he doesn't just end up turning heel again. Hopefully it's a good run, and hopefully he can get spawned into the singles ranks, like as a babyface eventually one day. As far as the match goes, just a regular match. If this was Monday Night Raw, I don't know how necessarily good it would go over. You know, the finish was a dead giveaway, obviously, because they had, you know, SmackDown already claimed the bar. So, you know, whatever. Then we had, let's see, we had Jinder Mahal and Jeff Hardy. My God, this match was terrible. And as far as the ratings, I had Kalisto and Cedric 3.25, Raw Tag 2.5. This match with Jinder and Jeff Hardy, terrible. Went about 6 minutes, I want to say, and it was just like every single Jinder Mahal match you've ever seen. I don't see this supposed improvement in this guy aside from, you know, maybe he looks better standing there. I don't like that must just be it. They did this thing like, and I don't know who to blame this on, because I feel like both the guys were in the wrong here. So Jeff Hardy's on the top rope going for the Whisper in the Wind. He just does it. Like, I don't even know if he looks or he just expects Jinder to be there or the chemistry was off. I don't know how much these guys have ever actually wrestled each other aside from the other match that they had on Monday Night Raw. Super miscommunication, and the commentary was just brutal all night, and this was them just at their worst, you could say. So Jeff Hardy does the Whisper in the Wind, completely misses Jinder Mahal. Not even close. Then instead of like Jinder adapting to the situation, it seems like they had their match worked out and they were going to do it no matter what. They were going to have this spot and exactly laid out, and they weren't going to deviate from the plan at all. So Jinder Mahal takes a bump for no reason. If you haven't seen this, this is just awful. Like, like completely exposing the business, and you know, whatever. Guys have botches in matches, but this one was just, you know, it was a little much. So, you know, Jinder in that situation, I thought he maybe could have like just kicked him, or maybe dropped an elbow, or, you know, did something like laugh at him for missing something, but they just kind of, you know, didn't really do their thing there. I thought this was like a 1.25 stars. Like, I would have just gave it 2 stars because it's just a regular match, but then that happened, so I docked them a little bit. Then we had the SmackDown Tag Team match. It's time to talk about the Bludgeon Brothers. Luke Harper, I will never say a bad word about Luke Harper, and Eric Rowan's not that bad either. But this whole presentation for me just isn't working. They're just killing everybody. Like, who's gonna beat these guys? Are they gonna turn the bar face? They've already gone through the New Day. The Usos had all these raw ass matches throughout 2017 to essentially get shit on, like, during this whole feud, and this has been going on. Like, Bludgeon Brothers were killing jobbers for months, and then we got these belts and they look like they are unbeatable, and it looks like the only way that these guys can compete is Naomi coming out there and, you know, shaking her ass and twerking, and all of a sudden Luke Harper goes into a catatonic state and the Usos are able to attack. So we'll see how that all works. We had a couple comments I actually want to see. Simon Cotton says Jinder Mahal is a bum, a world-class bum, and doing it on a worldwide stage. I threw that part in. Sergio says what makes it worse is the same thing happened to Joe, but instead of redoing the spot, Joe went along with it and changed the spot. You are correct, Sergio, and that's actually what I was going to get to later. But I mean, Samoa Joe just looked like such a professional in that moment, and because I saw the ladder falling and it was like, uh-oh, like it looks like a spot got messed up, but he just like kind of rolled with it and adopted, and I think that's just Samoa Joe just being so much worlds like worlds away from Jinder Mahal as a worker. So, and that might speak to Jinder's like not confidence in himself, but feeling like what he can and can't do in the ring. So without, quote unquote, you know, getting punished for it. Because remember, it's not that long ago that this dude was just coming out here and losing in, you know, 2 minutes or less, like in a super jobber role. So he's probably a little nervous and taking, you know, the instruction a certain way. I'm going to do everything they want me to do with it. Simon said the War Raiders beat the Wyatt brothers at WrestleMania 35. I mean, I don't know, bro. When you see these guys, you're going to be shocked because Luke Harper and Eric Rowan are so much taller than them. I thought War Machine was always really big in New Japan, but when I saw them in person, it was like, I feel like these guys are my height. And this is just a thing with me. I kind of forget how tall I am sometimes, and James has to remind me, because I don't like necessarily feel like I'm tall. I'm like 6'1" or whatever, but when I walk up on these guys, I feel like I'm looking you eye to eye and you're the monster. I don't know, man. So it just kind of works weird for me. But on to the ladder match. I thought this was the best match of the show. The SmackDown tag, I gave it 2 1/4. Those guys really worked hard in that time, but they have to stop all this demolition. Like, as far as with the Bludgeon Brothers go, they've got to like, what's next, everybody? We got the ladder match coming out. Like I said, I thought it was the best thing on the show. Seth Rollins looked like an absolute superstar. He got cheered like a god. Seth Rollins came out and won the match, retained with one of the most awesome finishes I've ever seen in a ladder match, because it made sense. While this guy's fucking around on the ladder and climbing slow and everything like that, Seth Rollins used his athleticism, jumped from the top rope onto the ladder, went up there, got the belt, and just jumped off like, see ya, got the belt, holla, I'm out of here. And Finn Balor was up there looking like a jackass, essentially. Like, he's got to be turning, because this guy's just being made to look like a bum at like every turn by Seth Rollins. And of course, Seth Rollins has already like exposed this man and outclassed him, you know, aside from, you know, doing the job eventually the last time they feuded at SummerSlam 2016. Remember, he's younger than Balor. The company believes in him more than Balor. They actually let this man be on top and treated him like a real champion. unfortunately, we didn't get to see how they would treat Balor, but Rollins dressed that man down in all the promos, and now what they're doing with this whole thing, Rollins has dominated this man, and I feel like I don't, know where Balor's going. I don't think he can last as a babyface, just completely just being used like this, and him turning would give Raw another strong wrestling heel, because let's take a look at that roster. Outside of Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, with Ziggler and McIntyre in that tag division, who else you got? It's like, it's its own thing. But the ladder match, I thought, it had a lot going on in it. As Sergio mentioned, they had the whole deal with the ladder falling, but these guys adjusted. All those guys are pros. Miz got pyro out there. Awesome. And, they did this whole thing, and, that was pretty cool. I thought that was a 4-star match. So if there's anything on the show you want to watch, I would definitely check out the ladder match. It's not the most Daredevil type of match that you've ever seen, but it's just probably as good of a standard ladder match as you can have in 2018. So after this, WWE was out here looking like they were about to start an international conflict when they brought 4 WWE trial participants by the names of Nassar, Hussein, Mansoor, and Faisal. Excuse me. One of the guys looked like baby Seth Rollins. Me and Dave Finisher were calling him Saudi Seth. And they were cutting a promo and, being introduced and saying, hey, we want to basically be the first stars for Saudi Arabia, blah, blah, blah. Then Sean and Arya Daivari come out. As you guys know, these guys are from Iran, so WWE, not only in America do they do this angle, they are taking this to a worldwide stage, but the problem is, I feel like Saudi Arabia don't really play like that, bro. They are with the shits over there. Obviously, they ready to shoot or behead you at any moment, so I thought for a second the Saudi Arabians were going to rush the ring on these guys. Luckily, that did not happen. Sean was waving the Iranian flag, and Ari Daivari cut a promo on all of them, and he called all the trainees wannabes, and he put over Iran. Sean Daivari, he talked about Faisal, who was the guy that looked like Seth Rollins, I believe. He retaliated. Hussein hit a power slam on Sean, and then Nasser threw them out of the ring. This was the hottest thing on the show by far. Obviously, they're countrymen, and if this didn't work, I don't know what would have. Dan said they might want to change Hussein's name. I feel like all these guys have name changes coming. And if not, I mean, they're already down to one name. And that's how Vince McMahon likes a lot of these guys. Trying to think, what happened next? Oh, yeah. AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura. Whew, good God. Had to swig the water one time for the working man, like Stone Cold said. This match was really, really good. This, to me, blew away the WrestleMania match, and it was on the way to looking like it would end up in a 4.25, maybe with the right finishes, 4.5 stars. To me, it landed around 3.75, and to me, that definitely outdid their WrestleMania outing, which was kind of just a lot of stalling and them guys being confused on how to really wrestle each other, and it was just really weird. But the heel turn has kind of revitalized Nakamura, and Nakamura's been one of the best things in WWE since. They turned what was a dream match at WrestleMania into a nut-punching story that is going to culminate in a big match at Backlash a month later. I don't know, man. And the first person to point this out was Simon. And shouts out to Simon. He's in the comments right now. He's saying Kevin Owens and AJ Styles. If you guys remember the feud last year, it was like, wow, AJ Styles and Kevin Owens are gonna start to wrestle. This is gonna be crazy. What did WWE do? They booked it every step of the way to not be great. They let these guys wrestle, and then they throw a bullshit finish in there, or they do some type of weird ending that kind of just kneecaps the potential of it. And it's like, you have two of the best wrestlers in the world in there. Just let them fucking go. And I'm afraid that's what it feels like is happening on, with this feud. WrestleMania was kind of a muted match for the heel turn to go over later, better at the end. I don't feel like we saw the best of AJ. I don't feel like we saw the best of Nakamura. I feel like we saw a better version of them in Saudi Arabia, but it wasn't it still wasn't what we think, when we see Nakamura and Styles matched up, and the alignment is correct now. So they did a double count out finish. I don't know, man. Looking at WrestleMania a month ago, I don't think Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns were being counted at all when they were outside the ring, and that was not a no DQ match. So they kind of just pick and choose to use these things. I think they need a little bit more consistency for this stuff. They did this thing like, they kind of started off slow, but, it picked up. It was at a way faster pace in WrestleMania. The crowd, there was something I was watching on this. I felt like dudes were doing the wave. Like, this match didn't seem like it went over well at times, and then other times they got into it. So it was really weird all night with the crowd, because the big stars they kind of came out there heavy for. There were some people that I felt like they didn't know who they were. But this was somewhere in the middle, because there was times that it had energy, then other times it's just like, you see people in the front row asleep or turned around. Like, I don't know if everybody in there knew, exactly what was going on, but this was a good match. If you want to see these guys do it for real, though, it still stands. Watch Wrestle Kingdom 10. Hopefully at Backlash, these guys are able to really go at it, and hopefully Nakamura can, win the belt, or else he might be done as a main eventer. So I'm kind of anticipating a title change. They've kind of handicapped AJ Styles on this title reign, because they have not let him be that showcase champion that he was the first time around, where you could throw him on pay-per-view and just say, go. What they've done was, hey, we made him win the title on a SmackDown. Then we had him go in there and have a great match with Brock Lesnar. So I take that back. They did let him have one great match with Brock Lesnar. Then he had to fight Jinder Mahal again. And, you know how that goes. Then at the Royal Rumble, he had to, in the opener, defend the world title in a handicap match. And somehow he won, obviously. Beat two men's asses at once. But the match had, that booking in it that all AJ Styles and Kevin Owens matches seem to have, where something's weird. Then, of course, there was the six-man, match they had, and it's only so good a six-man match can be, because you're not really allowed to take over and prove you are the peak performer, unless you do some crazy shit like Ricochet at NXT a couple weeks ago. But that six-man match wasn't that NXT match. And then the Nakamura Styles match happens at WrestleMania, and they kind of feel like they get the volume turned down on them, and I don't know, man. They seem like they didn't know what to do with AJ Styles as a babyface champion, like as far as just letting them have great matches. So I don't know if that comes to not having heels lined up, because they kind of turned Nakamura just randomly. But I mean, if you want to keep that feud going between two babyfaces, someone does have to turn. I would be nervous, with AJ Styles right now, like how they've used him. So maybe if the belt comes off him, he can kind of get his rematch, and then go on and get pulled into something where he can really excel. I don't know, man. They decide they didn't want something out of AJ Styles this time, I feel like. Let's go to some of these comments. Simon says WWE has been sabotaging AJ Styles since his fantastic WWE Championship run. If you guys missed it, now this match ended up turning out okay with AJ Styles and Shane McMahon, but leading into it, AJ Styles is on the roll of his career. Swig one time, and I called it at the time, I called it the most elaborate fuck job of a top star ever to get the belt off of him, to get him into that Shane McMahon match. This time they let him keep it, and it feels like they didn't treat him the same way. So I don't know. But yeah, moving on from that. Undertaker defeated Rusev in a casket match. My God, I have a story for you guys on this one. So I was watching this show, as I mentioned, at work, and my homeboy next to me, I don't know if he wants me to say his name on here because I don't want to give away what he was doing, but he was watching the show as well. So the deal with it was, I felt like my feed kept going back. like his would always be like 2 or 3 minutes ahead of mine the whole time. So I figured, man, like the show's moving at such a fast pace and I don't really want to miss anything. I'm just going to watch it as is. And then I saw the Undertaker like music hit. I was like, I have an idea. I can just fast forward and close the app out, refresh it, and then the match will be starting right now. So I turn it back, and the Undertaker's making his entrance. I go through the whole refresh, the intro, the everything, essentially. This motherfucker Undertaker hasn't even reached the casket yet. And I was minutes behind, closed it, came back, and this motherfucker's entrance still wasn't over. So, they took their sweet time with that, and, it was a match. I don't think Rusev needed to have it. He's already over. They literally buried the guy, put him in the casket with Aiden English. He did get more offense than John Cena. It was still short. I want to say it was just under 10 minutes. Not really anything noteworthy or anything. It was an old school, Undertaker in the mid-90s type of casket match where he finally gets this heel that that had been running from him for months and doing foul shit and burning his his urn down and making it a gold chain. That's just what that felt like, except without any of that story. They randomly just announced this shit, and it was a bunch of strikes, an old school, a choke slam, and a tombstone on Aiden English. And Rusev laid in the casket for a really long time while that shit set up. I think that's about as good as you can probably expect The Undertaker to work, and even so, that's not good. I believe I gave that match like a 2.5. So, yeah, man. Undertaker still got to go. Like, I don't, know what anyone here is waiting for. I don't know what you need to see at this point for him to keep rolling out here. Rance had a really good point on his show. He said, stop being Brett Favre. Either just come back or don't. Pick one. Just, whatever. I don't need to see any more Undertaker matches. I think I made that clear. But Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. My God. These dudes here. So, I don't know whose bright idea it was, but these guys came out here and essentially, without the blood and without going outside the ring, these guys had the same match that they had at WrestleMania. It wasn't really anything special at all. This reminded me of, when you play WWE SmackDown, SmackDown 2, Know Your Role, or one of the old SmackDown games that you could play on like PS1 or 2, where you could set the amount of finishers that you had in the beginning of the match and you just use them at the start of the match just to get an advantage. That's what this was. I feel like Brock Lesnar had 5 F5 stored, Roman Reigns had Superman punches and spears, and these guys literally just came out there and was like, we're just going to start doing those. There wasn't any type of lead up at all. Like, when AJ Styles and John Cena was criticized for this, what they forgot was there was like a 10-minute portion in the beginning of the match where they were working each other over, and then they went into it, and that's kind of how you structured those things. These guys were just like, fuck that, we're going to start with German suplexes and then straight into the F5s and spears and Superman punches and just literally just hit each other over and over and over and over again with these. And it was like, while I was watching this, I was like, this is exactly what we feared that the first match between these guys would be. No one looking like they were capable of leading a match, and it just kind of being there. And I feel like with the finish, we were set up for bullshit. Oh yeah, Vince McMahon finessed the Saudis, by the way. 2 title matches. We're not giving you a winners, like solid winners on each of them. We're gonna leave one with a controversial finish, and the other one we just gonna roll this bitch over. But they had Roman Reigns spear Brock Lesnar out of the cage, and then Roman Reigns' feet were on the ground first. This is why you do not book finishes around objects with the object being the finish. It's never good, because things like this can happen. Now, it's worked in the past as well. We've had Stone Cold Steve Austin get thrown through the cage, but to me, that's just too much of a variable for, too many things go wrong. One, Lesnar, for example, what happened, his feet could mess around and not hit. They only make their announcers look like dumbasses, And also, their company looked like dumbasses when they have them instruct and say, Lesnar won, when we're clearly looking at Lesnar's feet up on the cage with Roman Reigns sitting on the outside. So I don't know if this is some kind of further example of this quote unquote work shoot thing. So Roman can say he was screwed, and I don't know, man. But this program is dead. It is tired. It is washed. It is way past the peak. I felt like the time to have this match was around WrestleMania 33, and they just delayed it, and we're hoping Roman Reigns would get more over. I don't know what they're waiting for. I feel like they really know that this guy isn't the guy, but they are lying to themselves. And if you were still saying to yourself that Roman Reigns is the guy, you're probably lying to yourself, because they don't have to do this with someone that is the guy. It's like you have to delay and delay and delay and delay. I've never seen them have to work harder to get someone accepted than Roman Reigns. They go all the way over to Saudi Arabia, right? Roman Reigns comes out, a little bit of, some cheers, a lot of boos. Then it's like silence. Like when they cut the music off, you think you're going to hear like a little something. It was like silence. I don't know if that was just the stadium or, my headphones or what. But I know when Lesnar came out there, it was just like they went crazy, and I don't know if that's the fact that Lesnar's been a star for 15 years. And, when you go to different parts of the world, it's like whoever's been exposed the longest. And, that's why Randy Orton got cheered so much, I feel like, in the Battle Royal. Orton always gets cheered at house shows a lot like that as well. Swig one time. And I don't know how that all works, but where are they gonna go next for Roman Reigns to get cheered? Are they gonna have to go to Wakanda? Like, I don't... Sergio says they need a one-on-one Extreme Rules match where they just let it go all out. They need something, man. Like, Roman Reigns needs to go on excursion. He needs to, leave. Someone else has to beat Brock Lesnar, because if they keep running this match out there, it's such a tone-deaf example of, them being boneheaded and stubborn. And it's like, yo, you have so many other dudes that you could potentially go with and use Roman Reigns in the correct role that it's blatantly obvious that he needs to be. He needs to be the heel champion at some point, because that will not only make all the wrestlers kind of fall into their natural alignments. You can use this guy and really still have him beat everybody and be the man like you want him to. And I don't know, man. They're just lying to themselves at this point. The match was not good. This was a standard cage match. I don't even think it went 10 minutes. So they brought these guys all the way over there to do that match. They're killing Roman Reigns by the day, and Lesnar still being champion. It's Brock Lesnar. There's nothing exciting about it. Who's next? Strowman? It has to be Strowman at this point. Doesn't it look like that? Simon says, nah, it's done. You might as well put the title on Cena. I don't know, man. Cena's not who he was as a wrestler anymore. He's still the best promo in the company, I think. But as far as a wrestler right now and what would get people going, I don't think John Cena's it anymore. But yeah, man, on to the last match, the 50-man Royal Rumble. So it started, and I was like, man, I wonder who they could bring out at number one. Because I'm thinking yo, we've got a bunch of surprises. We got big name guys. This wasn't that. So they brought out Daniel Bryan at number one. And I was like, oh my God, he's going coast to coast. And then he fucking did it. So Daniel Bryan wrestles 76 minutes in 87-degree weather. I never want to hear someone say they are worried about Daniel Bryan again, because WWE is back to riding him until the wheels fall off like normal. He's the workhorse of WWE. He will continue. He was the workhorse of WWE. It looks like he's currently about to be the workhorse of WWE once again. So let's just go through this Rumble, courtesy of F4W.com or F4W Online. So Daniel Bryan and Dolph Ziggler started, and yes, this was the Geek Parade. After this, Sin Cara was in at number 3, and then they got rid of him. Curtis Axel came out. Mark Henry was in at 5. Henry eliminated Curtis Axel. Mike Kanellis, who we haven't seen in months, because I believe he had his child being born. I believe he was dealing with some issues getting sober. Looks like he is in a good place now, so excited to see that guy back. On a personal note, and he was thrown out of the ring immediately, by the way. I think my dog Caleb had a couple things to say on Twitter about Mike Kanellis, but strictly professional. Then number 7 was Hiroki Sumi, and I was like, who on God's green earth is this? Apparently, he is a sumo wrestler, and he was a Hall of Fame sumo wrestler in Japan, and he went toe to toe, and all he pretty much got used for was to get thrown out immediately by Mark Henry. Daniel Bryan, and eventually got Henry out of there. So we had Victor of the Ascension, Kofi Kingston, Tony Nese. So the cruiserweights kind of mixing in, and it looks like Tony Nese could eventually move out of that cruiserweight division. He's really, really good. I like Tony Nese. We saw a dash of the Revival, Hornswoggle. From there, we saw Primo Cologne, and as you can see, the Geek Parade is indeed, a thing. So after that was Xavier Woods. Then Bo Dallas came in at 15. A couple more eliminations. They got rid of Primo. They got rid of a bunch of those guys. Kurt Angle came in at 16, and the exciting thing was seeing Kurt Angle and Daniel Bryan. And I don't know if that really went over well in Saudi Arabia. They probably just didn't get it, but it was exciting to do a couple things. And Angle is obviously super washed and broke down, but it's nice to see Kurt when we can. This doesn't hurt anybody being in a 50-man Royal Rumble, especially with the amount of geeks they have lined up. So we got Dawson in at 17, Goldust at 18, Connor from the Ascension at 19, and Elias was number 20. We've got to talk about Michael Cole. Michael Cole was trending on Twitter for an abysmal performance, not only here, but all fucking night. When he was sitting there botching the Roman Reigns finish, when they were calling the Jeff Hardy and Jinder Mahal thing, when he said that Sergeant Slaughter was the late, great Sergeant Slaughter, so while Sergeant Slaughter is actually alive, then I don't know what it is with him and Elias. Elias isn't even a face, but he is... So the thing is, Elias is cool in a way that heels are sometimes cool, and a lot of people like him. And the one thing that you can do to ruin that is put Michael Cole on it and have Cole start co-opting the cause, because what is cool about Michael Cole? Nothing. He is the establishment. So all you're doing in that case is hurting Elias by informally aligning Michael Cole with him, I feel like. So... And that leads me to the point, Michael Cole has been in WWE since 1998. It is 2018 now. I believe Jim Ross was around for the same amount of time. Ross showed up in 1993 and kind of got phased out around 2012, 2013, a little bit probably before that. So if Cole's been around this long right now, right? Is it time to get rid of Michael Cole yet? And I don't say that from a point of malice. I don't say that from a point of, this guy doesn't do his job right, because he does do a lot, as far as holding the broadcast together, training the other announcers, different stuff like that he actually is pretty good at. But there are certain things with Cole that are almost unforgivable. Cole has no credibility with the audience at all. None. He literally is the voice of WWE, meaning not he is the voice of the fans or anything. He is the company's, the way they've decided their announcing is going to go. This is Vince McMahon talking through this guy. And that's pretty much, disqualified all credibility that this guy has. So I came to the conclusion that if Michael Cole walked in tomorrow and was like, you know what, I'm done, I don't think a soul would care. This wouldn't be this thing where we're begging Michael Cole to come back, we were begging Mauro Ranallo to come back, or Jim Ross to come back for all these years, even though, Ross has seen better days at this point. But there was a point where we were like, yo, why can't we just have Jim Ross back? He's still the best guy. That's not Cole. Cole's kind of just there. So I asked, 20 years in, what would you do with Michael Cole at this point? Do you just let him keep going forever? Do you transition him into another role? Or do you just leave him on Monday Night Raw to just be, Vince McMahon's voice? I don't know. But number 20, back to the Royal Rumble, Elias came in. Swig one time. Luke Gallows was out here at 21. I'm surprised like Luke Gallows like didn't get beat by the next entrant. You know, Luke Gallows is one of the slowest members on the roster when it comes to moving around out there. 22 was Rhino, 23 is Drew Gulak, another 205 Live guy. Then we saw Tucker Knight from NXT, random big guy. And I've seen a couple theories about this, like going outside of the United States, they want the big dudes really being displayed because that will pop the eyes of the audience. After that, Bobby Roode was in at 25. He eliminated Goldust. Fandango was 26. Chad Gable was in at 27. Rey Mysterio was in at 28, and in the all-green outfit. It was cool to see Mysterio out there, and he got rid of Luke Gallows. Mojo Rawley came out, and he got Fandango out of there. Tyler Breeze came in at number 30. Big E was number 31. Carl Anderson, 32. Apollo Crews at 33. He ended up getting rid of Chad Gable. Roderick Strong from NXT is number 34. So we saw Daniel Bryan and Roderick Strong run it. And God bless him, Roderick Strong, he chopped the shit out of Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan, like someone had captured a picture of Bryan like laid out in the corner like that, and they were like, Passion of the Christ 2004, just like how bad that man looked, like he was whooped on. Like if you didn't see Daniel Bryan's chest, it looked like a red magic marker was just like put over his chest 1,000,000 times. So Roderick Strong beat the hell out of that man. Randy Orton was in at 35, and he RKO'd a bunch of people. We saw him get rid of Cruz, Rawley, and Anderson. Heath Slater was in at, Heath Slater was in at 36. Babatoon from NXT is 37. And at this point, I just howled with laughter. I'm like, yo, it's like they're pulling out every big motherfucker they could find. Babatoon hasn't even debuted on NXT TV yet. I've seen him at different house shows. His music is hilarious. It's like, and he's doing this gimmick where he's essentially the Bad Luck Fale to Leo Rush's Finn Balor. So, with the same entrance and all that. So, Dan says, Heavy Machinery has the worst singles of all time. Yes, I feel like those are two guys that you don't want to follow behind the bathroom. Like, if you're out there, you know, at a barbecue one day, then is you walking in with one of those guys in the bathroom and you're, you know, next behind like Tucker Knight, and then you see Dozovich walk out, just leave. Like, find another bathroom. You are not going to want to follow those dudes. After that, Baron Corbin was in. He got rid of Rude and Strong. Then we had the moment of the night. And if you do not know what I'm talking about, pause this podcast if you're listening to it on delay and go find it. Titus O'Neil with the move of the night, the botch of the year, the new, improved Shockmaster. This man, Titus O'Neil, came out here. You know, his music hit. He was excited, and you know, number 38, and no one will ever be able to do this again without us thinking that they were trying to emulate this or anything like this. Titus O'Neil is trying to spin it like it was, you know, some plan he had. No, he did not have this plan, and you know why? And James pointed this out to me. They missed the fucking live shot of it. So if it was planned, they would have got that. Unless it was just, you know, bad camera work, which we can't underestimate either. So this motherfucker Titus O'Neil, this man takes off in full sprint. I don't know what happens with his feet, but right at the end where, you know, the mat starts and the ramp ends, he trips, and this man goes baseball sliding head first underneath the ring, and they ran this motherfucker back at least 8 times. I swear to God. They had these guys on commentary dying laughing, and this was great because it was a long show, and I feel like those dudes, this was their reward. They got to call one of the all-time moments, and this was on Twitter immediately. Gift all over. Titus O'Neil was trending, was breaking Twitter. They had memes up of him with the Shopmaster mask on. It was awesome. It was great, and you know, he came back in after that. So hopefully he can get some merchandise out of this. So you know, Titus O'Neil sliding. After that, Dan Matha from NXT, another big dude. Dan Matha does not suck though. So despite what some of you may have seen from him or think, this guy is a heat magnet. He's a good promo and a above average wrestler for his size. And I saw this dude at NXT at one of the house shows, and he can turn a building on him in a second. So we may end up seeing him one day. I don't know when, but you know, After that, Braun Strowman was in at 40, and he got rid of all the NXT guys, Babatoon, Matha, Heath Slater, a bunch of dudes. Ty Dillinger came in at 41, so all that 10 shit seems to be a wrap for Royal Rumbles. After that, Orton and Mysterio teamed up, and they tried to take out Strowman. Corbin and Mysterio battled out a little bit, and then after that, basically Corbin got rid of Mysterio, so getting some heat there. After that, Orton threw out Corbin, then Elias threw out Randy Orton, so I tried to pay attention to like who they kind of spotlighted. So they're trying to, paint Elias as a main eventer, but they don't really want to treat him like one. So it'll be interesting to see how, that goes, and I've talked about it over the last couple of shows, how they're dealing with Elias right now. Swig one time. Kurt Hawkins came in at 43, and so the funny thing was that Strowman was essentially waiting for the next entrant to come in, and it was Kurt Hawkins, and the way you saw Kurt Hawkins was like, fuck, I gotta go fight this guy. So he knew his streak was about to continue. So he ran away from Strowman, but Strowman, obviously chased him down, and they did all that. So Strowman threw Hawkins out, and then Bobby Lashley came out. He got full pyro. So this is something to remember. All these guys that got pyro. Miz got pyro. I want to say AJ got pyro. Lashley got pyro. You should definitely pay attention to who got the pyro, because it is something to kind of look at how they feel about these guys in the company. After that, Elias and Lashley were going at it and got rid of Elias rather fast. Then the great Khali came back. We haven't seen Khali since the Punjabi prison match. Thank God. He looked immobile as ever, and of course he was chopping, like Brian Alvarez would say. And he eventually got thrown out by Lashley and Strowman. Kevin Owens came in at 46, and then Cole said this is the record for the longest. Basically Daniel Bryan at this point had broken the record. For longest Royal Rumble performance ever. Then Shane McMahon came in at 47, and then Shelton Benjamin was in at 48. Owens tried to get, an alliance going to get rid of Strowman. Big Cass was in at 49, and Daniel Bryan was like, bring your ass out here, we gonna run it. And then all of a sudden, Chris Jericho came in at 50. After that, it was pretty cool. This match, there was stuff happening, but this isn't like a runaway, blowaway Royal Rumble or anything. This was just a run-of-the-mill Royal Rumble that was really long with some kind of decent kind of surprises. I feel like, you get Mysterio, you get Jericho. Obviously they're advertised, but they're not everyday guys. The NXT guys getting a look, and of course Daniel Bryan going coast to coast. I can't be mad at it. And the thing was, coming into it, it was like there's probably two guys that can win this. It's either Strowman or Daniel Bryan. But since nothing was really on the line, I didn't get worked up that Daniel Bryan didn't end up winning. From there, Strowman eliminated Jericho, Owens, and Lashley. Bryan was trying to get rid of Braun Strowman, which was hilarious. But Big Cass, jumped him and eliminated him after an hour and 16 minutes. And then the final two was Cass versus Strowman. And this just feels like Vince McMahon just doing what Vince McMahon loves to do, having two big husky motherfuckers running it. But it couldn't have been longer than 20 seconds, and then Strowman got rid of Big Cass. But star of the match was Daniel Bryan, going 76 minutes and working with every guy that came in the ring. I didn't hate it. I thought it was pretty, cool. It's just a novel thing. They gave Strowman a belt after, and they gave him a big trophy. This was almost like Vince McMahon was saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry I didn't let you main event WrestleMania. I'm sorry, that we didn't read how over you were. I'm sorry that we just stuck to our plans, but here's a belt. Here's a Royal Rumble win. You can win the biggest Royal Rumble ever. I'm so sorry, Strowman, and hopefully this can go, on a way to building this guy back up again. He is the guy that people want on Monday Night Raw, and I think that he got the pyro at the end, by the way. So this was, I thought it was a good show overall. I didn't think it was blow away. I thought it was better than WrestleMania, but I didn't really think much of WrestleMania, so take that for how you want. If you want to see my ratings for it, I believe it is in the, I'll go through them real quick once again. So I got 3.5 for Cena and Triple H, Cedric and Kalisto at 3 1/4, Raw Tag Team match 2.5, Jinder and Jeff 1.75, SmackDown Tag 2.25, ladder match 4 stars, Undertaker Rusev 2.5, AJ and Nakamura 3.75, Brock and Roman 2.75, 50-man Rumble 3 stars. So nothing all time great, but it was definitely a show that I'd give a couple looks at. Look at the good stuff on the show and watch the atmosphere. Just see how it kind of feels to you, and see if you think WWE is gonna continue to do this thing and prosper over there. And hopefully they will be able to get the women on the show eventually one day. But WWE is not going to change Saudi Arabia. I don't know where any of you got that from, but this is just going to be something they're going to have to work around. Hopefully we can get Charlotte over there. We can get all the women over there. They ran a commercial during the event that they later had to apologize for, and they meaning the Saudi Sports Authority, showing the women, and I believe this was like the Backlash commercial, and also that that song that everyone just loves so much that they showed, and they had to apologize for that. So it's like the 1940s over there, and it would suck, I tried to just substitute, what if it was like women what if it was black folks that weren't allowed to, come into the show, or what if it was, someone else. But it's like none of the comparisons are actually like comparable to like what they're doing, because they're working with like this kingdom. So it's a full propaganda charade, and I think that the phrase "all good money ain't good money" applies, but sometimes you just got to take the money, and that's like kind of disheartening, but it is like business in a sense. So yeah, man. Besides that, what else do we have to look at today? Oh yeah, Dave Batista. So in one of the weirdest stories that I've read about, this type of, over the weekend, and this was like recently I read this. So apparently Batista confirmed that WWE ghosted him regarding the Ronda Rousey WrestleMania thing, and he was basically saying, I'm not going to hang around forever. I'm almost 50, and, I'd love to do a last return. This is Dave Batista, who's in the Marvel shit now. Like, he has no reason to want to come back to WWE, right? And the way he was treated last time when he came in, and I'll be guilty and say this, it was just the wrong place at the wrong time for one of the like most solid guys in wrestling. And I remember I met Batista in person once. He was just so nice to everybody, and he was a guy that got crapped on, but he walked into the wrong situation, and I don't think WWE knew it at the time. But they haven't used him since, and he's wanted to come back a couple times, and obviously eventually do a thing with Triple H, but it just never quite works out for him. So he was on an interview with Chad Dukes in Washington, D.C. So he was like, this is all insider stuff, and I usually don't share, because he says, I'm a really old school kayfabe guy, but they reached out to me earlier this year, possibly to come back and do the thing with Ronda. And he said he would only be willing to do it if he teased something for him and Hunter to go at Mania next year. And they said, yeah, that would be great. I love that idea. And I said, well, that's great. I'll come back a few times during the year and we'll tease it, and we'll work it, and we'll milk it, and we'll go to Mania, me and Hunter next year. Oh, I love that idea. Let's do it. And we literally talked for about 3 weeks, and then they just stopped calling him, or calling me being Batista. He said he sent the text to Hunter, and he was like, hey man, I don't know if you put any more thought into what's going on, but I'm really excited about the possibilities. And I never heard back from them. They just stopped talking to me about it. Now, I don't know what else I can try to do. I want to end my career the right way. I'm faithful and loyal to the WWE. I'm proud of being from there, and I just want to do good business with them. But they don't make it easy, just, they don't. So it's like, he said he basically told him that next year would be his last year. He's turning 50, and he'd be willing to. He feels great physically. He's in great shape. And if you've seen Batista, obviously that's the case. But he just doesn't want to be an old guy in the ring. He doesn't want to overstay his welcome, because I feel like he learned last time, like, yo, they will turn on you. And he just goes on from there saying how much he loves it, and he said even though the fans crapped on him last time he was there, he'd still go back in a heartbeat because he loves to entertain us and he has fun doing it. But he just doesn't get it, and he said, I don't get that company, man. I just don't understand. I don't know, man. Like, Batista has been critical of WWE also. Maybe they don't like that, but I don't know why they would start talks with the guy and then just abruptly stop. I don't think that would be a real good way to run a business, but especially with a guy with Batista's value, in the nostalgia type deal, and also with the Marvel appeal. And, I don't know, man, like why they would treat that guy like that, but weird, very weird. Now I'm not pining to see a Batista and Triple H match or anything like that. Like, don't get that twisted. But, like I said, if you're going to bring it up to this dude and tell him, yeah, that might be something we want to do, just keep y'all word, man. Just keep it a buck with him. Be like, yeah, we changed our minds. We don't, see that happening. We don't have those creative plans for you. But, Batista never really kind of got to go out, so I can sympathize with Batista there. So let's see. Simon says Batista got the game fucked up. He's in a big money making gig and he's trying to get some big bucks, but he's trying to come back to put over Triple H. Yes, he is hustling backwards in a sense right there, Simon. Sergio says Avengers made $630 million in the opening weekend. Why wouldn't they want to work with one of the stars? I don't know, man. I don't. Maybe it's a situation where if they feel like they can't do more than one thing at once, and they have like all their big time creative energy tied up in Ronda Rousey and Brock Lesnar, and this is just one more big guy they have to accommodate. But I don't know. It seems like Batista is one of the more easygoing kind of guys, like, and he'll do what they want him to, but at the same time, at this point, he is Dave fucking Batista. So I don't know, man. That's a bad look for them. Simon says on WWE's end, they already made the mistake of missing out on Guardians of the Galaxy, and they could have been at the beginning of the wave of momentum. Yeah, they did miss out, and they kind of treated him badly at the beginning of that whole thing. But if he is loyal to WWE, he says he wants to be loyal, why not let him be loyal and use those things? But maybe it's a situation where it's like, yo, we got one movie star we care about, and it's The Rock. Like, you see how they treat Cena. Like, I don't see them really plugging Cena's stuff like that, and obviously they don't book him the right way. He did go over Triple H, but it's Triple H. That was like the first time Cena won a match on pay-per-view in how long at this point? So I don't know, man. It's really weird. But yeah, I'm taking questions here. I got a couple minutes if you guys want to leave some in the comments. It looks like we've got a couple more, but yeah, man, like, I don't know, man. Greatest Royal Rumble, it was a 5-hour show, and it was something that is the start, because this isn't over. Like, we're gonna keep having these conversations, like, about whether it's cool for WWE to be in bed with this type of deal, like with them being propaganda partners and all that. So it'll be interesting to see. Sergio says he wants a full-time deal, and that's more valuable than The Rock right now. I don't necessarily know if The Rock is like, The Rock's gonna get injured like every time he wrestles, and it's like, you got to have something really good. I think the only person I would want to see The Rock fight at this point is Triple H. Anybody else, isn't really like creatively there for me. Like, him and Lesnar again. Like, come on now. Rock's not taking all them suplexes, and if Brock Lesnar can't do those suplexes, it's like, what else is he here to do at this point? I don't know. It's always good to have The Rock around and be able to pull that out of your back pocket, be like, oh, hey, we got The Rock. But as far as like creatively and what he can do as far as building a program, I think that ship has sailed. Let's see, what is Corey Graves doing? So we got a question about that. Sergio Parra says, thoughts on Corey Graves' Greatest Royal Rumble tweet. Let's see. I did not see what he was talking about. So, he said, when money eclipses passion, is it still success? Is that the one you were talking about, Sergio? So, I'm looking at a couple different tweets. He says, I'm not built for the public eye. NYC to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. I think you're talking about that money and passion one, right? Yeah, so okay. So it looks like that's the one. So basically, they were calling Jeddah a progressive city, and they were doing a bunch of stuff like, it was rough, man. Like, and I feel like that's kind of like a vague way of doing it, like saying that on Twitter. Hopefully he doesn't get fired for that, because that sounds like something they would do. Like, yeah, man, we just gonna get your ass out of here. But maybe Graves in a position where he's so valuable to them at this point, where he made that as vague enough to where he had plausible deniability to be about anything. So I don't know. The fans can read what that means, but he might be able to spin it if he can just, lie his ass off, essentially. Dan says, did you see the WWE UK article on Deadspin? And if so, what are your thoughts? And they are trying to get franchises in other countries to take over the world like they took over territories. So, I did not see that column on Deadspin, but I did see the investor phone call where Triple H unveiled that map with, several other parts around the world. What I can say is, I think Triple H really, really loves the idea of a territory system. Now, whether there's actually enough talent in those parts of the world that he was like dropping the NXT flag on, that remains to be seen, because it's like, wow, you're doing all this stuff and it's very ambitious. I don't know if Pete Dunnes necessarily grow on trees like how you found the UK. Can you get dudes to stay out of the New Japan dojo? You want to put performance centers in all these places, and it's like, they're gonna have to staff those joints. They're gonna have to make sure they are consistently developing, and it seems like a big way to lose money. And NXT's already not profitable the way they kind of, they operate in the red, and they can do those things because WWE has so much fucking money. But it's like, I'd rather lose money in one spot than lose money in 9 places all around the world. So I don't know. I think, a couple performance centers are good. Them being that ambitious just speaks to WWE. They'll go for it. I'm not sure how it'll work out, but we'll all see. Sergio was saying, he was saying no matter how bad you have it, at least the women have rights here. Yeah. I don't know, man. Like, trying to justify, like, we heard, all the justifications for WWE and Saudi Arabia. Like I said earlier in the show, is like, my opinion on this isn't like necessarily any better than anyone else's, and there are trades that you have to make with these, types of complex issues. For example, like, some of y'all seen Kanye, like, spout off on Twitter, with all types of, like, foolishness earlier this week. So that's a trade you got to make. Like, if you're a Kanye fan and you roll with what he's rolled with, over his career, like, all right, am I going to listen to music? Am I going to ride all the way 100%? Or am I going to, like, just quit them all together? So, and I think that's, like, kind of the thing. Like, also, like, Nas came out and they said, and Nas was beating on Khalees, like, allegedly. And that's like, I'm a longtime Nas fan. Do I want to be riding with this out here? And saying that no matter how bad we have it here, at least women have rights here. It's like, I don't know, man. Like, they need to catch the fuck up. Like, and this is not a culture thing. This is civil or human rights. Like, this isn't culture. Like, this is them, like, treating people the right way. So hopefully they can figure that out for, so we don't have to keep having these conversations when it's time to have the greatest SummerSlam and the greatest Survivor Series, because they're going to keep going back there for years in taking this money, and it's just gonna feel dirtier every time. In the lead up to this whole thing, I didn't think about it a ton, because the more I thought about it, the more angry I would get, and I just kind of wanted to watch the show, and I just kind of wanted to feel like, it's a standalone event, it's a cool thing for WWE. But then you start seeing the stuff, as I called it, the propaganda, Sami Zayn not being able to come, all the women not showing up, and it just felt bad after a while. Like, and them, I don't know, man. And it's kind of disheartening, to say, because if you guys listen to One Nation Radio, like, where I am on all these topics, like, as far as, like, equality and everything like that. It's like, man, this is a trade. This is a trade that we all got to make. So, I'm not going to judge anybody for how they feel about it. Like, if you feel like, hey, I think WWE is going to do a great thing over there, more power to you. But I don't feel that way. I feel like they're cashing the check, and they're a corporation that will cash a check in light of, you know, what may go on and who it, you know, may disenfranchise or anything like that. And in my situation, looking at it, it's like, I'm a wrestling fan. I'm going to watch the show. Typically, I do a podcast. I'm going to watch the show. And it's like, well, I'll watch the show and continue to raise, you know, on my platform to raise these questions that have tough answers and try to answer them, you know, in my opinion, like the way I can. And also, like, you know, just work within, you know, the connections that I have with people talking about this. Be like, hey, can we do something to get this closer to like WWE, like coming out and issuing a statement and like really looking like, hey, you know, putting them in more of a light where it's like they need to explain themselves even better for this? Or should we just not take any of the shit seriously they do when they talk about wanting the women to reach higher plateaus in their company? It's like, y'all will throw y'all women away for a check like this. How much do y'all really care about this? So, and it's not like WWE's doors are going to close tomorrow. These guys are making that money. And they, you know, are in a situation now where I think they need to figure out what's important to them, because we know what it looks like is important. So I don't know. I'd like to see the women eventually like get their own show, like weekly show. I don't know, man. They've got a lot to figure out. It's really more complex than I can speak to on this show, and hopefully we get some concrete answers soon, because it's like the more they go over there and the more this happens. And I don't think this is going to be something that just, you know, turns over and gets switched. The louder that murmur is going to get, that kind of came at them late in the game here, because, you know, they did it and it was like, yeah, we had a bunch of stuff going on. We had the Superstar shakeup, we had WrestleMania, and then it's like, oh fuck, we've got this big show out of nowhere. And I think a lot of people kind of overlooked how deep the situation was. Next time, I feel like everyone's going to be prepared ahead of time. So all the straw man arguments, like, they're gonna start like looking even worse, like the more we keep going with this stuff. So, but you know, that's pretty much gonna wrap up the show. I want to thank you guys for joining me today. You know, for this show, it was kind of rough at times. Voice is a little like short at the moment. That's why I've been drinking so much water during this show. But thank you guys all for listening. Make sure you check out the rest of the Social Suplex Podcast Network, the Wrestling Wash with Caleb Baldwin, the Outsider's Edge with Rance and Carl, Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show, as well as Keeping It Strong Style for all your New Japan needs, and of course right here, One Nation Radio, One Nation Live. If you're listening to it in the group right now, I thank you guys for rocking with me on this Sunday. Enjoy the game. I believe it is underway now, and we'll see what happens. But this is Rich. Make sure you guys leave us a rating and review. I am out of here, and I'll be back later in the week after Raw and SmackDown, because Raw looks rough, and hopefully it's a little better this week. So anyway, I'm up out of here. Peace.
Thank you for listening to One Nation Radio. We'll see you next time.